I'm Jordan Riley Swan, author and founder of Story Garden Publishing, where we create books across genres, from fantasy to romantic comedies. I'm here with Laurie Cooper of Pubcraft, a marketing agency that specializes in book promotion and author promotion as well, maybe a little
Author
bit.
coaching, yeah,
Author
absolutely.
coaching, thank you. Today we're here to talk about, let me read my notes, the best ways to market your book. And I think that's a good question. I think people who like self-publish like me, they want to know, how can I get people to read my book?
Yeah,
Oh,
absolutely.
please. Maybe it's not even making money. I just want people to read my hard work. But
Yeah.
let's talk about making money too, because I am greedy.
Absolutely. That's an important piece of the puzzle.
It is an important piece of puzzle. All right. So question number one. There's so many ways for authors that they can market their books. We're talking about Facebook ads, Amazon ads, BookBub Featured Deals, other social media platforms like YouTube here, Instagram, Twitter. I mean, just all kinds of ways we can reach the masses. Which methods of book marketing have been the most successful in your professional opinion?
Okay, so there are a couple things I would address there. And the first one is that there are two schools of thought. I think here there are probably many more, but there's the school of thought where you need to be everywhere doing everything. And then there's what I prescribe to, which is that's too much. That's far too much pressure on yourself. Try and keep up with all that, especially if you're someone who's not in a position to have an assistant to support you with that kind of a thing. It can drive you wild and you end up thinking, okay, how can I actually have time to write? And that's ultimately what a lot of authors are looking for, is more time to write. And then, sometimes wearing that dreaded marketing hat at the same time. So first, I would say, try and dispel this notion that you need to be doing everything all the time. I do think it's a good idea to go to each of the social media platforms and claim a space there. So claim an account. It doesn't mean you have to be active in that space. I always recommend putting something that you can, and it's going to vary based on the account, but putting something that you can that indicates where someone can follow up with you. So for example, let's say you're not a fan of Twitter, but you have a Twitter account. The fact of having that account and having your name and bio associated with it is going to make you more searchable, because if anybody looks on Google, for example, they're far more likely to find those established social media platform accounts than something that you're not focusing on in terms of search engine optimization, like your website. So if they find your Twitter account, maybe you're not active there, but there's no reason why you can't pin a tweet to the top of that feed and say, hey, congratulations, you found my Twitter account. I'm not often on Twitter, but you can catch up with me here in my Facebook group, or here in my newsletter, or here on Instagram, or wherever it is that you actually like to be active. So start by first taking a deep breath and going, okay, where do I actually want to spend my time? Because that's very important to your overall well-being, and you're your greatest asset ultimately, and start there. Okay. But from my experience, I would say at a minimum, I recommend that you be present on BookBub, on Goodreads, on Facebook, and that you have all of your author accounts, whether you're wide or you're exclusive to Amazon, for example, up to date so that people can actually find you and your books there, like, for example, on your author page. So I'd start with that piece.
Okay, well, that makes sense. But let's talk about the three you just recommended. It was Facebook, it was BookBub, and it was Goodreads. Which method of those three, which method do you see the most successful response and engagement on when it comes to promoting your books?
I would have to go with Facebook because it's more bi-directional. So while that may not be where everybody finds that they get the most engagement, I would say it's necessary to be on Facebook because so many people are using Facebook, and because of the tools available there for you in terms of paid advertising as well as organic reach. So being present there is going to be massive. But those are just simply the social media or author social media channels that I would recommend you have a bare minimum presence on. If I were going to say what I think is the most effective marketing tool for authors, I would say absolutely your newsletter. And then in my experience, when it comes to paid advertising, I would say absolutely running discounted and free promotions so that you can get new readers to read your books and potentially get read through the rest of your backlist, or even just get that visibility and discoverability starting out.
Well, it's interesting you should bring up newsletter. We're actually going to do a follow-up YouTube video just about the newsletters, because it is a mystery and to a lot of us on what happens, why we need it, and so on and so forth. But we'll get to there. So my second question is, Facebook, you just talked about it, and you're talking about engagement, but what about just straight up, I need to make an ad because I've got this new book. How do you approach creating a good Facebook ad?
So I think this is actually a massive question. And if I were going to advise someone I think it's a massive question because I think cost per click marketing or CPC marketing is huge.
I need to interrupt. You said massive question?
Massive.
Okay, I thought you said a masked question.
No,
I'm like,
no.
I'm not hiding anything. I'm just reading the questions.
Give me all your info. No, I'll happily do that. I'm happy to do that. No, massive, because CPC marketing, there are so many best practices to learn, and there's so much you can do when you get into the nitty gritty of that when it comes to retargeting or identifying your ideal audience and reaching out to them. So if I gave a response that tried to encompass all of that, not only would we be here for a million years, but I think I would bore everybody to death. So I'm just going to give a very simplistic answer when it comes to a Facebook ad. So at a basic level, some obvious things like make sure that the text that you're including is error-free, have engaging visuals to go along with it. So I would recommend if you're starting, just do a static ad. So a single ad, don't get fancy with videos or carousels or anything. Just do a static ad that's appropriately sized for the platform. For example, an Instagram sized ad or a Facebook sized ad, or you can use Instagram size on Facebook as well. And if you don't know what that is, you can easily Google it, or you can use a service like BookBrush or Canva in order to have that template pre-established for you. And then in your copy, so in the text that you're including in your ad, ensure that you have something that is going to appeal to your reader, which I know begs a lot of other questions, but something that when they read that first line, you have a very limited amount of time to actually catch someone's attention in a feed. So have something that's going to make them curious enough to read the rest of the text that you have associated with the engaging visual. You want something that's going to stop them and go, oh, I want to look at this. I want to learn more. And that leads to a lot of other questions, I'm sure. But at a basic level, that would be the engaging visual, the copy, appropriately sized, error-free. And then after that, it comes down to really targeting your ideal audience, which of course has a million questions associated with it as well. But that's the basic answer.
Okay. All right. So let's talk about the Amazon ads. What's your experience level with the actual ads on Amazon itself for books?
Well, I did a really deep dive last year. So that was something that was on my goal list. And I did deep dive, and I had the pleasure of doing that alongside a client who worked closely with me and kind of banged their head against the desk alongside me as we learned how to do all these things. And we went down the road of, Brian Cohen, Robert Ryan, Janet Margot, Deb Potter, all kinds of names that, you would associate with the Amazon ads world, Jeff Affleck more recently, and just, seeing what kind of best practices were recommended. So I'd say my experience level there is pretty high. By no means at the caliber or tier that these people are operating at. Okay. But I'm successfully having, I suppose, lucrative returns for clients that I'm working with on their Amazon ads. So it's a slow burn in my opinion.
Since you've done that deep dive, have you come up with any pearls?
Yes. I would
give
say
me one quick pearl.
Okay. I would say that automatic ads are your friend, and to look at starting automatic ads to start if you're jumping into Amazon ads. And from there, have a look at on the back end in your author dashboard, have a look at what actually is causing the discoverability of your books. And then we talked about this in a previous video a little bit, but when you've defined or had an opportunity to dig deep and define your ideal audience and your competitive set or your author comparables. So those authors who write in the same space as you. So let's say you're romantic suspense. So you look at, a handful of other romantic suspense authors that you aspire to write, like have a look at their books, and then also see if you have an opportunity there to start doing some more product ads, ASIN ads, and that kind of a thing. So I'd start off with automatic and then start to build that out into looking at keywords, into looking at products that you can also have ads on. But I'm sure there's so many questions. There are lots of resources out there for those who want to start, and so many different ways to start to learn, and many different camps there too.
Okay. All right. So I think we talked about BookBub for a second there with the social medias and what have you. One of the most coveted book marketing tools is the BookBub Featured Deal, where you submit your book, and if they accept it for the featured deal, it goes out to all their subscribers, and you might have hundreds or even thousands of downloads that way. How can authors authors maximize their chances of getting that, super featured deal?
Yes, the elusive BookBub feature.
Elusive.
Well, I mean, for some people, they nail it every time, right? And you have those authors that are going like, oh, I would love it if I could just land a BookBub ad, or BookBub featured deal, because it's different than a BookBub ad. And then those who just like nail it every single time that they have a release or they decide to do promotion. So I will say that the listing requirements for BookBub are not meant to be a mystery. I think there's a lot of mystique associated with it, but you can actually look up the listing requirements for BookBub, and not only do they list their requirements there, but they also have a submission tips section as well, where you can figure out how to make your book the most competitive in the space. Because it's not necessarily enough that you're meeting all those listing requirements if there's a juicier book that they think more people would be interested in. So from what I can tell, and from what anybody can publicly see on the BookBub site, and any experience I've had as well, general guidelines include it being the best deal possible. So, the best deal available recently, for instance, if you recently discounted your book and the deal that you're offering through BookBub is not as good as that discount, and that was recent, well, you're kind of putting yourself in a difficult position to have optimal chances there. Of course, error-free, professionally designed cover that's appropriate for the genre. We're thinking mass appeal, and BookBub is thinking mass appeal to an audience. You have an opportunity when you sign up for a BookBub deal to select whether you would like it to be international and open to all regions, or US only. Open to all regions, as again, mass appeal. If you can make that as open as possible, then you tend to stand to have a better chance. Some other things include having more reviews on your books. That can help you. And they'll also talk about having BookBub reviews on your books. So not just on the other retailers, but also it being present on the BookBub platform itself. And then there's a series of other requirements, including timing. So just keep coming back to this idea of mass appeal. So for instance, those who are wide and not exclusive also stand a better chance to have their book featured, because we're thinking, okay, how can this get out to as many people as possible? And is it the best deal available that's going to be that thing that's really, tantalizing for the reader and, worth BookBub's while to be sharing that with their audience, because they know it's going to resonate.
Okay. All right. Well, one of the follow-ups was about wide versus exclusivity. So they're gonna lean towards a wide author more than an exclusive one.
Yeah.
Okay, I have heard that as well. I'm upset about that because I tend to be exclusive.
Yeah.
Have we
You have
have we
other
tried?
benefits.
Have we tried for a BookBub featured deal yet?
No.
Okay, well, we're gonna try one day, and we'll maybe report back in on YouTube how badly it went for us.
Most people will earn out when they're able to land it. There have been some people who haven't, but we'll have to check in, and then we can definitely provide updates.
What's the current cost for something like that?
There's a price listing. It depends on the genre. So,
Okay.
but I would keep in your mind anywhere between, $400 and $1,000. Ballpark.
Okay. All right.
You're like,
All right.
okay,
Okay then.
yeah.
So I've got my
Sounds
next
better.
question here. It says, what would you have me do if I only had $50 to market my book? I've worked a whole day. I've saved my cash. I did not have McDonald's. I did not, I walked to work to save the gas money. I've done everything possible. No vente lattes. And
Yeah.
I raided my kid's piggy jar, and I have $50 for this book.
Okay, and we're already assuming that your book is complete and professionally formatted and edited, and the cover's designed, and it's ready to go.
For just pure marketing sake, we've got the rest of it. I'm not asking you to produce a book for $50. Just saying, if you had to advertise, market it.
Okay. Well, I think that, and as you mentioned, we're going to come back to newsletters in a future session together. But I think that investing in growing your newsletter audience so that you can have that direct communication with your potential reader would be the best way to spend that amount of money. So I would consider purchasing something like a targeted newsletter builder. So trying to niche down into the space that you have identified you occupy, and then finding a builder that suits that. So for those who aren't familiar with builders, there are different types. There's reader builders and social media builders and newsletter builders. Typically, the distinction is that a newsletter builder, you tend to get a CSV file or spreadsheet at the end with targeted subscribers who have opted into your newsletter that you can then import into your newsletter provider. Whereas the others will build like a social media builder, will target a specific platform. Like let's say you want more Instagram followers or more TikTok followers, that kind of a thing. So I would go for a newsletter builder and grow your list so that you can nurture those new readers and see if you really connect and if they fall in love with your books and become super fans.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
that sounds nice. I'd like a super
Yeah,
fan.
it does sound nice.
I just like a fan at this point. You don't have to be super.
Yeah, you don't have to be super.
Just a fan.
You could just be a fan. Yeah.
Buy my books and
sounds
leave
good.
reviews, and I'll send you chocolates.
Yeah.
I would like to retract that. I would like to
Disclaimer,
retract that.
Jordan Riley
particular-
Swan will not be sending chocolates to fans, most likely.
All right. So there's lots of tools
Yeah.
for self-publishers. Like let's see what we got here. Publisher Rocket,
Yep.
Book Brush. There's I can't think of anything right off the top of my head, but there's two that we got listed here. Are there any tools you would add to that list, or is there you have any thoughts you'd like to throw out about Book Brush and Publisher Rocket?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so if I think that when recommending tools, it would depend on the author. Like there are some things that are go-tos for me, and I'll talk about those in just a second. But I think you're going to, assuming you're someone who's trying to do things in the most cost-effective way possible, and that you aren't in a position that you're necessarily benefiting from paid support, like a virtual assistant, then you're going to want a way to do image design in a way that is accessible to you and doesn't require you to be a graphic designer per se. So something like BookBrush, like you mentioned, is excellent because that's specifically meant to be simple for authors to be able to use that paid service and create instant mock-ups and images that they can share with their following that feature their book covers. So that's a great one. Another one I really like is Canva. You don't necessarily need both. I have both. It makes my life easy. I know a lot of clients who have both. But as long as you have a graphic design service that you like to use, and it doesn't have to be those two, but those are two very popular ones that have a very easy to use interface, then I think you're golden. You need to be able to have some basic image design skills in order to grow that visibility and be able to do things on a dime. And then you mentioned Publisher Rocket. Now, I think that's a great tool. I think it's more useful for a more advanced author. So someone who already understands the benefit of keywords and categories and who wants to analyze their competition. And, especially Publisher Rocket is really beneficial if you're running things like Amazon ads, because you're then able to look at the value of a keyword and decide and adjust your bid accordingly, or decide, which keywords you want to target, this kind of a thing. So I think if you're not in a position where you're getting into Amazon ads, or you're not in a position quite yet where you're really keen on analyzing your competition and breaking down what they're doing very closely, well, then I wouldn't necessarily jump to paying for it yet. However, do check it out, because, there's so many things that you can do with it. And I think it's a really valuable tool. As for other services or other tools I might take a look at, of course, I'm assuming that you have a newsletter set up, so that all the newsletter services, I'm a big fan of MailerLite. I would say that's my topmost one recently. I'm also pleased with Flowdesk so far. MailerLite, I think, is great because the customer service is fantastic, and you don't have to have a premium account in order to get that 24-hour live chat service access, which is sometimes a hindrance with other providers. So that's a great place to look for a newsletter provider if you don't have one. And then, of course, BookFunnel or Story Origin. They're similar services. I think that the somewhat strategic competition between them has made them both better. They both have more features available, but I think you ought to have one or the other. Some authors like to have both, but that's going to give you an easy way to provide reader magnets, which we can talk about now or later, to your audience, and also a way for you to offer review copies and engage in newsletter swaps and cost-effective cross-promotion. It's a really helpful tool that's cost-effective.
Okay.
Both of them.
All right. Well, the next question is, how much money should authors be spending on advertisements? Reading that, I'm like, well, I mean, I don't think the question should be how much money should you spend, because that's going to fluctuate wildly from person to person. But let me ask it this way. What kind of percentage of my sales should I be applying back into the marketing of the actual books? If I make $100 in book sales in a month, Am I spending 50 to market it next month? Am I spending 75? Am I spending $90 and I get a Big Mac? What's the percentage of, but we have a $10,000 month. Do I just stay at those low levels or do I ratchet up with that?
Mhm. Okay, I'm going to say I think this is different for every author because I think it highly depends on the risks that you are willing to take, the situation that you're in. And I mean, there are a couple, rules where someone will say, well, of course you should be willing to reinvest at least 20%. And some people will go, that's nothing. It should be way higher than that. So there are different rules, but I think if we approach it just a little bit differently, there is going to be a lot. And in fact, the majority of authors, I think, are in a position where they really aren't making a lot of money off of their books, right? And so, they're looking at what's in front of them and trying to figure out, okay, how do I get discoverable? How do I get visible? How do I identify my ideal audience and have them connect with me? And I would say that you can accomplish much of this strategically with less than $300 or in and around $300 to get started. So I would say focus on, trying to put yourself in a position where you can run some kind of a freebie or strategic discount, dedicate a budget to it of, around 300, and you can get hundreds, if not thousands upon thousands of free downloads on your book for that amount. And then you have a really great starting point for talking to an audience, learning from them, and growing from there, as long as you're able to, use lead capture. So I hope that that's helpful, but I know from my experience working with authors that how much you can invest or reinvest into your works is highly, highly variable.
Okay, a little too variable for a 20-minute YouTube video, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Okay. All right. How often should authors post their books for free or at a reduced price?
Well, I think it's going to depend on how prolific you are and how many books you have. But I would say that I think you can safely do that probably 4 times a year.
Okay.
I think you can do it more depending on the situation, right? Again, there are those variables for how many more books you have or how often you're releasing. If you're someone who's, super prolific and you're cranking out multiple novellas a month, you have more leeway pretty much with everything because you're able to, offer deals or mix and match, or you could potentially have this massive backlist and be doing weekend deals, bump books or box sets or something in Kindle Unlimited down to 99 cents or $2.99 or something over the weekend for a sale, or just for any excuse, really. It's a holiday. Hey, it's a Tuesday. Hey, it's, International Dog Day or whatever. People find all kinds of reasons, and finding those excuses is actually kind of key. But I think that if you're concerned that you have an audience that you're going to keep going back to the well and you're going to dry that out, or they're just going to think, oh, well, it's just going to go on discount, so I'm not going to buy it at full price, then, you have to start being strategic and not creating too many reliable patterns about when you're going to discount something. But I think you're okay at 4 times a year. If you need like a, gun to the head, hardcore answer.
4 times a year is a gun to the head, hardcore answer. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. What would be, so how do you approach promoting those discounted books? What is it?
What's the recipe?
What's the really quick down and dirty recipe? If I'm going to promote this book, it's going for free. And I imagine it's going to be a different type of promotion depending on whether you're whether it's straight free or whether it's just discounted. But let's say, hypothetically speaking, I've got a series starter. I'm going to put it for free. It'll prey on that read through, that I'm going to make money on that read through.
Mm-hmm.
What are some ways to promote that you would suggest?
Well, first of all, I would choose free if I had a choice between the two, just because the amount of downloads you'll get, and the intent of this is really to get visibility and get downloads to promote read through the rest of your books. The amount of downloads you get relative to a paid discount, it's exponential when it's free. So if it's the intent is visibility, well, then, go for gold, right? Get as many downloads as you can. So what I would do is, again, I would recommend, if it was possible, dedicating about a $300 budget to be able to invest in this freebie promotion, I'd probably discount that book for 3 to 5 days. Now, there's going to be some fancy footwork here, whether you are traditional or self-published, and whether you're wide or you're exclusive to Amazon. That's going to change some of the factors that you have in front of you in terms of how long you need to have things free. And then I would promo stack or promo push my ads that I had booked that featured the freebie within that 3 to 5 day period. And I would try to get the most downloads within that space so that I could drive the rank of that freebie book up to get more visibility in the algorithms for the online retailers during that time. And I'd make sure that I was, of course, posting to my social media channels, sending out a newsletter to let my audience know it's available, and sending out another newsletter at the end of the promotion, the 3 to 5 days, let's say, to be like, hey, this is ending. Make sure you grab it because, the deal's going to be gone soon. So you want to build that kind of urgency and that buzz in your audience so that they do download it. And then key, absolutely key, hugely critical, make sure that the back matter, that area at the back of your book, leads to other books in your series. Or if it's a standalone and it's not part of a series, leads to other books in your portfolio and your backlist that they can check out.
Well, two things I'll chime in on this. I know we're interviewing you, but I have experience here.
Yeah.
There is a little bit of gospel there in getting the algorithm to hit, because when we have done this in the past with freebies, there have been times where Amazon has forgotten or refused, or for whatever reason didn't put it in the free categories. And we've had to literally reach out to Amazon, like, please put it in the free category, and it's not going to move. And we could see the downloads, and then we could see when it hits the free category, shows up in the top 100 free, and the downloads triple, quadruple per hour. Literally, we've tracked it by hour, and it will literally, once it hits that free front page of Amazon, it is insane. And then the tail on that, when it goes no longer free, when people, it goes in the also bots of other things, you can see it ends up paying. Even that one book that you paid for free and you're counting on read through, it will often pay the $300 because of the page counts and the residual people buying it. Oh, I see that book that I've never seen before. The algorithm is a mighty curse and a pleasant friend at the same time.
Yes. And, to add to that, those are really important points, I would say, for your promo stacking, your promo pushing, when you're booking ads during that period, because Amazon may not put you in the free category right away. And like Jordan, you might have to go and contact support. It might be a good idea to put your heavy hitter ads on the second day so that, once you contact Amazon, you do get yourself in the free category, that you're still going to have that jump in visibility from the downloads coming from those freebie promotions. And then, oh shoot, there was something else I wanted to add to that was so important that you made me think of. Now I'm going to miss it.
The horrible part is that I'm doing the same thing. I said there was two things I wanted to say. There was another thing I was going to say about the free ads.
I remembered mine.
What's yours?
Hopefully it'll remind you. It was just in addition to what you'd said, is statistically at the end of a free promotion, it's important to know that if you are in Kindle Unlimited, the page reads from the book during that free promotion, you do not get paid on those page reads. So you won't actually get paid or get royalties on the page reads for the free book. However, when your book goes back to paid, any downloads that you get from the lingering visibility, as you mentioned, that tail, and you statistically do tend to get more paid purchases coming off of a free promo, you will get the royalties on that. So, it's just an important thing to note, since some people think like, oh man, I'm going to get all these royalties on all these great page reads. And it's like, no, no, you won't.
Okay. So, let me see. What's our next one here? What's your opinion on authors using social media platforms like Facebook groups, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube channels? Do the ones who go in there and engage with their groups, the ones who make videos like this for YouTube, do these actually lead to sales, or am I still going to just have to kind of advertise at the end of the day?
Like I'm playing a game of scruples. My answer is it depends, for anybody who's ever played that game. It depends on whether you're actually reaching your ideal audience. I'm always preaching about being reader centric and going where your readers are and connecting with them. If, for example, you are making good use of your calls to action, your CTAs, if you're actually leading people with instructions to a next step, such as this is where you can download my book, or this is where you can get a free sample, or this is where you can enter the contest, this kind of a thing.
I remembered.
Okay, you go and then I'll finish.
Oh my God. Okay, it is the slightest little thing, but you talked about back matter. This is something I was recently told in a seminar, and I trust the person is a heck of a self-publisher, so I truly trust them, is we all love to put the end at the end of our books, right? It
I
is
know.
a joyous, you know what I'm about to say, right? It
Mhm.
is a joyous moment for us. You've worked so hard. The end, it's beautiful. You see it on the page. You think, oh my God, I have done this thing. I've written this book. And you really should feel that. And on your paperback version, you should absorb it. Get a printed copy of it. Keep it on your nightstand. Look at that at the end. You've done something that 1,000 people have set out to do in any given month and didn't even get close to doing. I'm going to write a book where you're the 1% who made it. I'm just preaching at the choir here. But on your Kindle, on your do not put the end in your Kindle book. Do not do that, because the Amazon algorithm or the Kindle thing catches it and puts the next books that they're going to advertise, that people are paying to advertise. They think you're done, and it is often will cut out that back matter stuff that you put. You put the end, and then you put in all your links. Well, they're not going to see those back matter. They're not going to see that links. You need to kind of sneak in. We usually use like the 3 little asterisks, and then we go with thanks for reading our book, and here are some links, and here's a picture where you can click this to get to the next newsletter and what have you. But to get to that back matter page, people stop putting the end on
Mhm.
your Kindle books.
Mhm.
So was that
Yeah,
what you
because
were about
you
to say?
exactly. Well, because you need that call to action, right? You need to
Right.
actually lead people to that further instruction for how can they stay up to date with you? How can you get that lead capture so you can continue to have that conversation? And you're never going to have like a hotter reader if we think about the journey of a reader from like cold, not knowing you at all, through warm, getting to know you, and hot. If they want to purchase your books, they have purchased your books. You're never going to have a hotter moment than at the end where they have those, feel good or heartbreak or whatever experience they're having at the end of your story to get them to repeat purchase or to opt in to hear more about your books. So getting them to that space is absolutely critical. And that's really, really good advice.
Right. I'll even double say, if I'm wrong about the Amazon putting up automatic ads, if that was wrong, it's still a bad idea to put the end there, because you're going to have, if it's towards the end of a page, nobody's going to scroll past it. Oh, there's the end, and they're going to go to the next, what have you. So give them a
Mhm.
chance to know where you're going. Okay. So
Mhm. Ultimately, you don't want abandonment. Yeah, that's
yeah,
where it is.
yeah,
Mhm.
I've suffered that so many times. So that's a whole relationship thing.
No.
No. Okay,
What were
so
we
you were
talking
saying
about before?
we were talking about, because I have my notes.
Oh,
What's your opinion on authors who are using social media platforms, specifically engaging with people to try to get them to read their book?
yes. Okay.
Do those actually lead
So
to sales, or are we just spitting in the wind?
I think sometimes you were shouting into the void,
Mm,
there's nothing there. However, it
God,
depends on how you're using the space. I'm a big fan of reader groups. I think Facebook pages are kind of dead. They're a means to an end. They're a tool. I describe them as an active billboard, a place where people can discover you that leads to other things, other calls to action. Facebook groups, however, they get lots of organic engagement. It's a great way to connect with your audience. If you are, posting a bunch of content to your page and seeing that it's crickets, start a group, invite your fans into that group, invite your friends, invite your connections, your readers into that group, and then you will be so impressed at the change in engagement you get in a group versus on a page. So there are some things like that that can really help. But I would say find something that you really enjoy doing. If you're someone who loves YouTube and you want to create those videos, then absolutely do that. But remember to use things strategically, like having that call to action, like leading people somewhere. Ask yourself before you put out any content, what purpose does this serve? And generally, you want to be thinking, is this educational? Is it entertaining? Is it inspirational? Right?
we're all
Ask yourself
three.
those questions, or all three. Yeah. And then what is the call to action there? What are you inviting them to continue doing? So you think about what purpose that content is serving. And then I will say, though, if you're someone who's not active at all on social media, you might want to consider getting active if you are going to invest time and energy and funds into cost per click marketing. Because when you start to do a deep dive into Facebook advertising, and I can recommend checking out Sky Warren's Author Ads Intensive, or looking up this coach Laurel Lane, who has some great free webinars and a course on Facebook ads as well, then having the tools available to you, such as the Facebook Pixel, already having social media content out there that you can look at the insights and analytics for, that's going to give you information you can then use to target your audience better. So it is good to have a presence regardless of whether you feel you're truly seeing results from that yet.
Okay. Well, a lot of that made sense.
Okay. Oh, good. We can work on the other stuff.
Okay. So she asks, what are some mistakes you've seen authors make in marketing books? But we're going to go with, what's the number one mistake you see authors make when marketing their books? The big boy, the one you're like, oh, I see it so much and it's the worst mistake.
Lack of clear targeting, and you know, I would say also combined with lack of clarity. If you're not giving, keep it simple. You know, I say KISS, keep it simple, silly. If you're not giving, if you're not reaching your target audience, your ideal reader, and you just have this shotgun or scattershot approach, then you can spend a lot of effort for nothing, because you're not really able to connect people to you that are going to be part of that tribe, or are going to have that Me Too moment with you where they go, oh, wow, I see what you're offering and I want it, or I resonate with this, so this connects with me and I want more. And then even if you can get to that place, which is amazing, where somebody goes, yes, you have to give them instructions for how they can learn more. So if they're like, oh, I want more, where do they go to get more? So this combination of knowing your ideal audience, or continually working toward that, because it's an evolving process, plus the call to action. This is so critical. And I think it's really easy to miss, especially when you're starting out. But it's not just new authors. It's really savvy authors in a lot of ways too, who just aren't putting those pieces of the puzzle together, and they're missing out, because that lead capture, which is why the newsletter is so critical, that lead capture where you have an opportunity to continue to have a conversation with your readership, that is so huge. That's going to allow you to actually learn from them and connect with them, and you know, provide your books to them and have all of the wonderful things we associate with being an author happen. So make sure to have that and continue to focus on identifying who your ideal audience is.
And more importantly, make more of them.
Yes. Find more of them.
Make more of them.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we got one last question. Any other final marketing tips?
Final marketing tips. I feel like my brain is buzzing with lots of things.
Well, we've only got another minute or two, so.
Okay, then I would say look for other authors in your space. So other authors that you write like, aspire to write like, that might have a similar audience of who, where. Look online and find out, you know, which authors you think would have a similar audience to you, and start lurking and learning from them. I have these two little characters, Lurk and Learn, and they're always kind of creeping on people and going, hey, how are you talking to your audience? And what can I learn from this for best practices? Because that'll give you so much insight. Okay, well, good. All right, so Laurie, tell us, where can we find you online? You can find me at www.pub-craft.com, and I'll send those links to you, Jordan. And you can also find me on all the social media accounts at PubCraft Team, or you could search the hashtag AskPubCraft, and you'll usually discover me there as well. Okay, we'll put those links in the doohickey bottom thingy underneath. Perfect. Somewhere here. Thank you. All right, so once again, I'm Jordan Riley Swan from Story Garden Publishing, and this has been Laurie Cooper from PubCraft, and we've been happy to discuss these marketing tips with you. Bye. Thank you.